Welcome to a presentation on education and homelessness by Evelyn Colon, Brianna Dawson, and Elliot Gafter. This is for Education and Social Achievement with Professor Cox at the University of Central Florida.
In today's society, we have laws requiring all children to attend school. Society fails to notice that all children are not made the same, all children do not live the same, and all children do not have access to the same amount of resources. When school ends in the summer for most children, they lose the major stress factors of their daily lives. For some students, however, this is merely one small concern being temporarily alleviated. These students make up the homeless and foster care population in school and can have concerns such as continuing their education for the next year or even finding their next meal. School supplies, uniforms, transportation, healthcare, and food security can induce stress in these students between semesters, and not nearly enough is being done to help this group complete their education. The Coalition for the Homeless reports that residency requirements, guardianship requirements, delays in transfers of school records, lack of transportation, and lack of immunization records often prevent homeless children from enrolling in school. These children are not living in stable conditions. Many move from city to city, from one school district to another, forcing them to move to different schools. There is no way a child will focus entirely on their education if they have no idea where they are going to sleep next or when their next meal will be. The United States Department of Housing and Urban Development notes the following. In 2018, more than 180,000 people in families with children were experiencing homelessness, and most people experiencing homelessness in families with children were staying in sheltered locations at about 91%. That amount alone is horrific, and that number of children represents that many children in those local public schools.
Homeless students are generally less likely to complete high school than the average student. This has significant implications in their future economic outcomes. According to information from the American Action Forum, a nonprofit advocacy group, there is generally positive trend between the level of education one has completed and their likelihood to be employed. Specifically, those with high school degree are 30% more likely to hold a job than those who drop out of high school. As such, it is critical for educators and politicians to be invested in making sure as many students graduate as possible.
According to statistics from the nation's report card and the National Center for Homelessness Education, there is a drastic difference in educational outcomes between the average student and a student classified as homeless. Where roughly 71% of students test as proficient in math, science, and language arts for their grade level, less than 40% of homeless students test at the same benchmark. Further, roughly 64% of all students graduate high school, where less than 50% of all homeless students will do so. The homeless population makes up roughly 2% of the nation's student body, so more consideration should be given to the education outcomes of this minority.
It has been found that children who are homeless score lower on standardized and basic tests within their exclusive grade levels. Due to the lack of home stability, homeless children tend to miss more school than those who are not homeless. Additionally, according to the book Homelessness, Health, and Human Needs, people who are homeless tend to get sick more often. Sanitation and cleanliness play a critically important role in a child's life, and a lack of consistent sanitation can allow for more frequent flu outbreaks in school. These children will be more likely to miss days of school than those who are not homeless. These children may be more likely to come to class sick or tired. By having an accumulation of missing school days and lower test scores, it is no shock that there are drastically lower levels of homeless children and foster care children who go on to graduate. The cards are not stacked up in these children's favors, but this does not mean that it is impossible for these children to graduate and get a good education. They might have to work a bit harder than the other students in their grade level, and the school system as a whole needs to consider these children more when thinking about school zonings and budgets for the school year. A simple way to help these students may be to reduce the amount of stress that they face on a daily basis. While many problems are difficult for a teacher to help with, the amount of homework assigned to students as well as the amount of time given to do that work is something simple to change that can alleviate the number of things for students to worry about each day. The Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction notes, having students who are homeless in a classroom can admittedly be challenging, necessitating ingenuity, creativity, and patience. As such, teachers looking to help homeless students may employ a trial and error process for determining the best ways to be of assistance.
From a policy standpoint, the McKinney-Vento Act currently offers certain rights and protections to homeless individuals in the education system. Specifically, these students are provided with transportation, referrals to healthcare providers, a liaison between themselves and the school, equal opportunities to succeed in their education, and various other guarantees as laid out by the National Law Center for Homelessness and Poverty. As to what else can be done, liaisons could be required to assist students with enrolling in free and reduced lunch programs, because ensuring students have adequate access to food may be an important step in higher levels of educational success. Additionally, federally required meetings between parents and educators may be a good way to ensure a student's family is sufficiently involved in the education process. To be clear, these changes would be framed as an expansion of the McKinney-Vento Act rather than an entirely new policy.
If educators and all staff members at schools would focus on helping these children, their education would definitely be of a higher quality and would not be seen as a chore, but as a fun thing to learn. By not helping them even in the slightest, this could hinder their education. Allowing students to turn in work either earlier or later than expected, as well as taking time to help students with their work, would be massively beneficial to homeless students, as they may not receive this type of support from within their family. This is just one way that we can make these children feel more welcome and comfortable in the school. On the contrary, something that might not always be considered is the fact that change doesn't necessarily happen within the schools, but is in control of the government and policymakers as well. If the government is made aware of a foster child's home situation, or if they know that there is a certain area where homelessness is prevalent, more funding should be given to those schools. This would allow for the schools to have the budget and supplies to give to the students who need them. If teachers, governing bodies, and all staff alike understood that every single child and every single family is different, they could come together with a plan to assist these children in a way that can help in ways never imagined. For example, host classes or meetings where families can come to the school and learn about the resources that are available to them. At the beginning of each school year, all children must come to school prepared with notebooks, pencils, and pens. But for many students and families, that is virtually impossible. With the implementation of free school meals and free basic supplies, Children who are in the foster care system will be able to focus more on school while they are in school instead of worrying about doing other things.
Thank you for listening to our presentation. We have a list of references available for further reading.